Hi, Bobby. Thanks for joining me this afternoon.
Hello, thanks
Hi.
for having me.
So I guess you feel a little bit through the rabbit hole this afternoon because normally you're the interviewer. Um, so can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your involvement with the creative arts?
Hello, so I'm Bobby Benjamin. I'm an artist and curator based in Middlesbrough. I'm the co-director of Pineapple Black Gallery, where you're currently sitting.
I'm
Um,
at least pretending to be, yes.
yeah, I'm also the co-curator of an arts event called Picasso Baby, alongside my own arts practice, first and foremost. So yeah, that's who I am and what I do.
Brilliant. So let's take that back a bit. Start with your own artist practice. Where and when did it all start? Have you been doing this since you were a kid? Did you come from a creative background?
Well, I mean, I always like to kind of to make art, but I was kind of my perspective was really limited on what that could be. So I mean, I always kind of drew. As I got a bit older, I went halves with my friends on a camera, and we filmed stuff. But it was kind of I never kind of thought of it as engaging with the arts, as just kind of making content to entertain ourselves, really. Um, it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s I moved to Middlesbrough with my then partner, who was studying art at the time, and also photography. And I became quite interested in the photography side of it. And then she took me to Mima one day. I believe it was the Toulouse-Lautrec exhibition, and there was just something in him that I related to. And yeah, my fascination just started there, really. I enrolled straight away in art school. I studied photography for 2 years. Then for my degree moved on to fine art, which I studied at Teesside University. And then ever since since I left there, I haven't really looked back. I've just been kind of making. That's kind of all I've done with my life since then.
Brilliant. So can you tell us a bit about where your ideas come from and the form your art takes and the materials that you use?
I'm inspired a lot by my area and my background, and I find my kind of circumstances that I've kind of grown up in, are not dissimilar to a lot of other people around here. So a lot of times I can, it's an interesting way to kind of study society by looking at myself. So and the things that I kind of come across and things that I find. And so yeah, I work primarily with found materials. And so it can take all kind of shapes and sizes, really, depending on what I come across. But yeah, I tend to try and look for something that kind of maybe has a duality, that kind of it represents something to me, but it could be something else kind of in a gallery setting. One of the things I've been working with predominantly over the last probably 4 or 5 years now is a material that I came across when I was working for Biffa Polymers at the recycling plant. And this is it's a polymer, a recycled polymer. Comes out as like a molten pulp, and then sets into these kind of hard, kind of these Geiger-esque sort of forms. And I was really fascinated with that, and I guess I look at that and relate it back to my own life. And you work on a production line, and you see kind of this waste kind of churn through, and then it all kind of becomes the same thing at the end. And you kind of there's something that just resonates with me about the material. So yeah, I've been working a lot with that, painting it, building upon it, and that's something I'm really looking to explore kind of moving forward. But at the same time, anything I come across I will use. If I'm a hoarder, I've got cupboards full of stuff. I've got friends keeping all the stuff for me. It all has a kind of I guess a resonance with me or with the area that I want to explore at some point. So yeah, I work primarily with found materials and paint too. I like to paint. I've always kind of used paint in a very non-traditional kind of sculptural way, like, how can we build with this? How can we use it as an adhesive or something? Up until lockdown, when I've kind of been, I guess, exploring it in a more traditional way, or at least as kind of close to traditional as I'm ever going to get. Like, I've been making paintings. I don't necessarily use a brush or anything, but it is kind of painting on kind of bored. And yeah, I've been looking a lot at kind of how kind of ends and beginnings can be strikingly similar, and so I've been painting kind of these ambiguous kind of sunrises, sunsets, things like that. And yeah, so that's kind of well, I was going to say in a nutshell, but I went on for quite a while there. But yeah, those are all the things I've been working on in my own practice of late.
Great, really, really great. And I remember learning the word crepuscular a few years ago, meaning that twilight hour between sunrise and sunset. It's kind of interesting to think of it in those terms of endings and beginnings being very similar. So tell us a bit about this place. For me, it was the first place that I visited on when I declared my mission, which was back in, I suppose that was back in about May 2019. So tell us a bit about Pineapple Black.
So Pineapple Black, originally my co-director Stephen Irving, he came across the space, and it used to be a new look store, so I'd known it as that. And even then, when it was full of clothes, it looked like a spectacular space. I'd always kind of liked the space itself. So he came across the space. I think he'd been put onto it by Liam Slevin from the Auxiliary, and he kind of came. I think he'd gone down the list of core collaborators, and so ended up and kind of got on and started to get involved. And as soon as he mentioned which space it was, I was like, yeah, sign me up, get me involved in this. And Stephen's somebody who I've known him for a long time. We both won an award like back in 2013 to get a year's rent paid on a studio by Mima, and we kind of ended up putting our money together and getting this cool space. And we had our fun and we had our arguments, but we always kind of stayed friends, which is something I appreciate. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I went in with Stephen on Pineapple Black, and yeah, it was just, we wanted to do something that kind of could bring international artists to Teesside, yeah, but also really kind of celebrated what we've got here, which is what all my projects have been about over the years. So yeah, we set up the space. I think we opened in January 2019. Yeah, it was our 2-year birthday yesterday, from the day we opened. And yeah, so we've just been kind of putting on shows. We've got the main space, which is kind of there behind you, where we tend to have our lead exhibition. But then we've got the old changing rooms, which will be kind of an alternate space. We have a window gallery where we do things. We're gonna, when we relaunch, we'll have a newly converted upstairs space and studios. So there's kind of exciting things to come as well. And yeah, it's just all about putting on as many exhibitions as we can. We have a pretty kind of quick turnover. We do a show every 6 weeks. Each show lasts 4 weeks with a 2-week gap in between, where we kind of then look to the community, get people in to do their projects, and kind of help them along the way with our expertise. And so we always want it to be a space that kind of worked for the community, which is why we try and steer away from the word gallery. We've always referred to it as a contemporary art space, and that's how we see it. And from day one, we around here we've lost a lot of community centres, and I said I wanted it to be a community centre too. And me and Stephen are both dads. We've both got kids, and we like to, and we're from working class backgrounds, so we wanted it to be a space for everybody. You don't have to feel like you need to have a degree to come into the gallery and enjoy it. But if you have a degree, you'll probably also enjoy it too, because it's good stuff we do in there. We put on good fucking shows, you know what I mean? And so yeah, that's kind of that's Pineapple Black, and yeah, we're just really excited to relaunch the project. The setting you're in now is our new virtual space, which will be launching on February the 5th, and we're really excited about that. That's developed in coordination with Dovetail Joints, my good friend Connor Clemens, who Dovetail Joints was a project me and Connor started together a few years ago. He took sole kind of directorial leadership of it in January last year, and has done exactly what I thought he would do, which is take it to the next level. And it's amazing to be collaborating with him, and he's developed this brilliant space for us. We've got our opening show on the 5th of February, which is Mitchell Proctor. Again, something I'm really excited about. Mitch is somebody who I met. He was the year above me studying photography, and I knew instantly that like this guy was going places. And I told him then, I said, like, I'll get in touch with you in a few years and I'll have opened my own gallery and I'll give you a solo. And I did. I opened House of Blah Blah and gave him a solo, and then he's gone off and traveled the world, and now he's back home, and we're, you know, I think he had his last UK exhibition with us 9 years ago, and now he's having his new exhibition with me at Pineapple Black Virtual Gallery, PBV Arts, on February the 5th. And yeah, he's just a great photographer. So anybody who happens across this, check out that. It'll stay online long past the opening. So yeah, go and check out Mitch's work. He's amazing.
Brilliant. Love it. Yeah, it's terrific space. I love the atmosphere of it. I don't think, I think even if you have got a fine art degree, some of the galleries are really intimidating and not conducive to relaxing and immersing yourself in artworks. And I think what you've created is quite the antithesis of that. And I think it's brilliant the way it's got those great big windows fronting onto the main car park at the main shopping centre in Middlesbrough. You know, it was, I kind of like lurking outside to see people's reactions as they go past and the different ways that they're engaged and they're intrigued by it. And, you know, I've been to some terrific events down there, and I just think it's a, you know, really important space. And I'm really, really glad that it's going to be surviving and that you're even kind of expanding. Really exciting. And yeah, and this is just like a thing of beauty. I love these virtual spaces. Tell us a bit, I mean, other than Middlesbrough Art Weekend, I think, and even maybe more than that, Picasso Baby is, I just absolutely adore it. I just think it's the most exciting arts event that I've ever had the pleasure to attend. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, Picasso Baby, it's so much fun, and it's one of them events that I just wanted something that was kind of nothing to do with any of my arts practice, you know, just the opposite of that, just somewhere I could just go and just have fun and work with other artists and join people up. And, you know, I'd always had this idea about kind of doing this sort of, you know, Picasso Baby project, which would kind of be centered around like an arty party, which everyone kind of made something together and partied there together and, you know, kind of, you know, built something as a collective. And yeah, it was just kind of, you know, the perfect storm really that, you know, I'd been connected with Jane Jorgensen from over at Disgraceland, who was one of my close friends and an extraordinary person. And, you know, she'd always had this vision of Disgraceland as being like this Berlin kind of covered in graffiti. And I wanted to do this arty party and cover it something in graffiti. And so we just said, like, well, maybe we can do this, you know, and then kind of, you know, just thinking of who else can work on this. And one of the people I'd always been talking about since I first had the idea, I'd been chatting with John James Parangi, sorry. And yeah, and again, he's just another really fabulous character. He's a guy, I happened across him on Instagram. I didn't even realize he was a local student. I just thought he was some established artist out there. And I was trying to buy paintings off him, and we just became connected that way. And then I kept working with him. I don't think there's any artist who's shown in Pineapple Black more times than John James Parangi, you know. So, and he was just such a prolific artist. And so yeah, we brought him in, and kind of the three of us, you know, we wanted to kind of build this thing that could get as many people involved as possible. And yeah, so it started out, we would invite artists down to Disgraceland. Yeah, and you know, we'd pick a bunch of artists who we liked, but you know, you're free to bring your friend. We would have open days where the public could just come and join in as well, and we all just kind of cleared out our studios, like got a load of paint together. Mima, bless him, gave us a whole bunch of tins of paint to use, which we're still kind of using now, like a year later. And yeah, we just kind of shared material, shared ideas, tried not to be too precious about, you know, each other's work, just kind of paint some on the wall, and if someone wants to start interacting with that and painting over bits, that's cool. And you know, and just this lineup over the year just grew and grew and grew, like the people involved. And we would do it, we would all lock in there pretty much for a week and sort of create this thing. And then at the end, we invite everyone around and put a couple of bands on. And I mean, the list of people who've been involved with it, from kind of bands like James Leonard Hewitson, Benefit, Squams, Colin Metcalf, a performer who works in BSL. We had like Slutmouth involved, Gigi Allen Partridge. You know, it just goes on endlessly. And people who've never done anything like that before, one of my favorite kind of Hartlepool artists, Michael Pounder, came down. Never done anything like that before, and just get him in there, and he starts working on a piece of furniture and turns it into a masterpiece. And it just grows so kind of organically in a really sort of non-hierarchical way. And yeah, so Picasso, and so this is what it was. It was this kind of live event. Obviously, we adapted when COVID came, and we did a digital issue. And the idea with the digital issue was to kind of make a magazine, something that, you know, one thing that Picasso maybe doesn't have is any money ever, you know, like, you know, people get kind of paid in peanuts. I'll give someone a piece of art for helping out sometimes, things like that. And, you know, if you can buy the sausage rolls and you're having a good week, you know, like, so, yeah, you kind of, we were like, what can we do for free? So we decided to do this digital magazine. But it was like, how can we stick as closely to the ethos of the live event as possible? So with the magazine, we kind of give everybody a page with complete editorial over their page. So like, you know, you could, you know, if you want to make a piece of art, or, you know, a picture of your ass, or a political statement, or leave it blank, whatever you want, you know, and have an advertisement for your next single, whatever, and just, you know, whatever you give us, that's what goes in the magazine. You know, that's how we're going to print it, sort of thing. And so we did that. And again, it was like, you know, we had people from kind of college students right through to kind of, you know, we had like best-selling author Richard Millward did a page in there, the author of Apples. So it was like, you know, and so this is what we're looking at now. Until we get back to our live event, we're going to go regular with the magazine. What we'd ideally like to do is be able to print some souvenir copies eventually, but, you know, we're launching on February 19th with issue 2 of the digital issue. So yeah, we're really excited about that. We've got some really cool people on our list of artists to contact, and hopefully they'll all want to be involved. And yeah, we're just really excited about that. Myself and Pranji kind of put that together and see what kind of, it's the beauty of it is me and Pranji, we give, last time we gave all the artists a week's notice to keep it like the event. So we just jumped in their inbox a week before, like, do you want to do it? You've got a week to do it. And then me and Pranji gave ourselves one day to put the rest of it together at the end, you know, and like, so this time I think it's a bit more time, not too much more. Yeah, and hopefully kind of put together another really cool magazine. And, you know, I have no idea what it's going to look like. It's the kind of the voice of the people, I guess. And then, and also that carries over on into our Instagram, which if you check that out, Picasso_baby_borough. Over on there, we do a wee takeover. We aim for Friday, like everything we do, it's a shambles. That Friday sometimes falls on a Monday or whenever. Yeah, we've got some really cool takeovers coming up on there. Faye Hadfield, an amazing sculptor based down south but from Teesside, we've got coming up on there. Sorry, Escalator are taking over in March with something that's going to be really special. So yeah, there's plenty to look out for on there as well. So yeah, we're just kind of about trying to highlight local talent, well, and beyond, I guess, but not just highlight it, but get them kind of interacting and working together and feel like we're all building something kind of together. It sounds cheesy, but it's just fun, you know what I mean? That's all it's about.
Brilliant. And I think, you know, it's really important to, I mean, I think all artists should be paid. They should be paid low, you know, give us the fucking money. But I still think that even in that, there's place for things that are like completely DIY, no budget, chucked on collective collaboration, that people are doing it just because they want to do it. I think that can be the spark for many things. I think if you take the piss and just get people to do stuff for free, then, you know, that's only a bad thing. But to kind of just bring people together on a limited budget, limited time scale, and just see what comes out of it can be some of the most exciting stuff that goes on. And I think Picasso Baby really proves that.
Just to touch upon that, like, yeah, I think, you know, I'm a massive advocate of artists, you know, need to be paid and don't go and do things for free, you know what I mean? But yeah, I know, like, you know, I've been involved in so many DIY projects over the years where, you know, you can't pay artists, and I never like to go to them and say like, oh, it's about exposure or anything. You know, I just say like, this is what the project is. Like, do you want to be a part of it? If you don't, that's fine. I'll still be, you know, there'll be another opportunity down the line that maybe you do. You know, it kind of, you know, I would never begrudge somebody who would say, oh, well, you know, I can't afford to get there. And, you know, we'll always help where we can. If somebody, you know, there's been times at Picasso Babe where someone said, I want to do it, but I just can't get there. And we've really, hustled a couple of quid together for the train fare. And, it's one of them where if we eat well, they'll eat well, kind of, if we get money, it's going to get shared with everybody involved, we're not after kind of it, but, I think sometimes
I think that's where the line is, isn't it?
Every aspect, isn't it?
It's like if no one's earning any money and everyone's giving freely and no one's getting all the accolade, no one's getting all the exposure, I think it's fine, but if people are making their name off the backs of other people's work, you got to pay everyone. And as you say, if people just can't be involved without a bit of money, I mean, that's, that was kind of, where the Red Room was heading last year, suddenly, because it seemed wrong that no one was getting paid. So, we had one successful event where everyone got paid and then that was it, lockdown.
I mean, we've applied for pots of funding. We tried to get funding from Cultural Partnership to go ahead with the magazine on a basis that over 12 months we did 6 editions and every single artist got paid for their page. So we're kind of looking into things to try and generate income for the artists. And certainly when we do get any income on Picasso Baby, it'll be going kind of, straight back out into the project, because that's the way it's got to be. If people are doing things for you for free when there's no money in the pot, when there's money in the pot, give it to them guys who did stuff for you for free. Always, that's how people have to operate these days. Like, you've got to be fair with artists. It can't always be a favour.
Yeah, absolutely. Just don't be taking the piss and support one another and give back where you've been given, and then I think we're all good.
Exactly.
Bobby, we sit here and chat all afternoon, but I've got another interview to do now. Thanks for this. Has been great, and thanks for all your work on this project. And it's been a joy working with you. And I can't believe we're kind of, actually at the end of the 6 months. And Saturday, 5:23 p.m. That's it. Official cut-off point. No more interviews. And I think we've done pretty well. It's like we're kind of just about on the 250 mark, I think. So one hell of a project.
Yeah, it's nice. It feels nice being on the other side of the camera. It took me a bit of getting used to doing the interviews. You'll probably see anybody who watches across them, it started off a lot more kind of serious, and after a while I learned to just kind of relax and have a chat kind of thing. It's interesting to kind of see somebody else's style from the other side of the camera. But it's been really fun to be involved, and I really appreciate you getting me involved on it. And I'm excited to kind of see the results now. And one thing that I found during lockdown was kind of doing the interviews and talking to the artists it was a big pick-me-up for me, because you'd hear how people were kind of adapting to their circumstances, and the resounding thing was people were looking at the positives from it always, and what could they take out of the whole experience. And to hear that back over kind of the 15-20 interviews I did was a nice little pick-me-up on a regular basis. So yeah, I really enjoyed being a part of that. Yeah,
absolutely. It's kept me up. I mean, you have to be up to do it. So yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do afterwards, but yeah, I'm gonna dash. Pleasure as ever, Bobby, and I can't wait to get out and raise a glass with you at the end of all this.
Yes. Right, well, thanks for having me. Catch you later.
Toodle pip.